The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Nick Kypreos wrote a blog in the Toronto Star today about the Leafs offseason. There's some news and some notes, and then in there's a little portion called Kipper's Corner. And in Kipper's Corner, there was a really, I think, an important note, something that we should discuss here. And the note said, prior to the Predators spending a whack of dough on free agent Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea, ex-Leaf Ryan O'Reilly did his very best to convince GM Barry Trotz to make a push and trade for Mitch Marner. So there you go. There's evidence within the Nashville Predators organization. Someone employed by the team, this time it's Ryan O'Reilly, said, hey, what if we made a trade for Mitch Marner? It's been a rumored destination for a little bit now because the Nashville Predators needed offense. That's kind of what they're lacking. And here's a great playmaking winger, the player who can put up near 100 points in a season. Maybe this is what the Nashville Predators need. And you look at that note and you say, okay, so how would that have gone? This is, remember, before Shea, before Marchessault, before Stamkos. If you're Barry Trotz and you're sitting there, you say, okay, Ryan O'Reilly wants Mitch Marner. Let me see how this works out. And you take a look at the roster and you say, no, there's no reasonable situation where you trade off of your roster to acquire Mitch Marner when you can simply wait till free agency and sign a player like Jonathan Marchessault. That's, I think, the reality of what happened here. A good Mitch Marner to Nashville trade doesn't exist. I think that's the main point here. It's like you get excited. You say, okay, wow, Preds, Nashville, Mitch, they got the cap room. They need the scoring, but it doesn't exist because for $5.5 million over the course of 5 years, the Preds simply signed Jonathan Marchessault, who is a 69-point player last season, is in that neighborhood each of the previous seasons, and there's the winger help they need. Plus, you get Steven Stamkos and Brady Shea and all that fun stuff. And this is kind of what it comes down to. And like before I get to that point, actually, let me just go through the rest of the Preds roster and just illustrate this point of how it doesn't work. A Mitch Marner Nashville trade doesn't work because who are you giving up? You're not giving up Saros. You just signed him to an extension. That doesn't make sense. That's your goalie of the future and the present. You don't have any D that you would be willing to part ways with. Like you're not giving up a 1-for-1 of Roman Josi for Mitch Marner. In my dream reality, if I'm playing NHL 24, I'm probably doing Josi for Marner 1-for-1, and maybe the video game accepts that, but in the reality of Earth, the Preds aren't moving Josi for Marner. I would like that. It's not going to happen. So you're not going to get Lozon or Shen or just any of these other, like Colton Sissons, Tommy Novak. You're not moving Philip Forsberg, Gus Nyquist. Like there's not enough there to appropriately offer the Maple Leafs something that they can then take back to the fan base and management and say, yeah, we can do this and not completely lose the deal. So it never made sense for Nashville to trade for Mitch Marner. And Barry Trotz isn't a dumb guy. He clearly saw this as well. If we can all look at this and say, yeah, the trade isn't really there. And this is what it comes down to. Now let's get to this point because this is the most important thing. If you're looking for a Mitch Marner trade, there are not many teams out there that can offer anything adequate. The list of trading partners is dwindling, and I don't even know if it's more than a handful of teams that have the cap space to take on Mitch for the year, that are willing to do an extension because you want Mitch Marner for the long term. Like if you're trading to acquire Mitch, you're trading to acquire him and keep him there. So you want the team who has the assets to give Toronto so they're happy with the deal, that has the cap space to get him, that needs offense, is a contender because he wants to go to a contender. Mitch Marner controls his destiny of where he can go. And I don't have a good list of teams that can acquire Mitch Marner. And at the end of the day, I think it's more likely than not Mitch Marner on day one of the 2024-2025 regular season is a Toronto Maple Leaf, because there's not an avenue for him to land on one of the other 31 teams very easily. If we want to look at some of the teams I guess Utah, to me, is the most interesting club. I look at Utah and I say, okay, they could do something where they swap a Clayton Keller for Mitch Marner. You say you take the established star instead of the younger one, who you take the guy who's scored 98 points. I think Mitch Marner's career high is. I could probably just check that real quick. For the guy who has his career high of 86, who's a little bit younger, who has not reached his full potential. 99 in the 23 seasons, what Mitch Marner finished with. Clayton Keller, career high of 86 points. So you say, okay, right now, Mitch Marner is the better player than Clayton Keller. So we get to upgrade there. And if you're Toronto, you say you take the lower cap hit, the $7 and a buck, 7.15 that Clayton Keller makes, and you take that and you say, okay, we're getting the extra cap space. We're maybe getting a player who's a notch below Mitch, but we get Keller and maybe some of those second round draft picks that Utah's hoarding. Maybe you get one of those back in the deal as well. But even then, if you're Utah, you say, we could also just keep Clayton Keller. And we get back to the same issue of, why would any other team want to give up what they have for Mitch? And the Leafs accept that fair deal of what the other team is willing to offer. I'm stuck on good fake Marner trades. I don't think the Vegas one is enough. I like Vegas's D, where it's some sort of combination of McNabb or even, I'm just pulling it up right now, like McNabb or Theodore or Nick Hague. But Toronto just went out and got a bunch of D. They have 10 NHL defensemen on the roster right now. It doesn't seem like they can go out and trade Mitch and collect more D, because they just did that through free agency. So a Keller deal makes the most sense on the surface, but in reality, a Mitch Marner trade doesn't exist. And I think that's what all Leafs fans have to come to grips with as we wait through the summer to see how this thing unfolds and the full roster we get on opening night. So that's it. That's what I wanted to say on this report from Kypreos that Ryan O'Reilly thought it'd be nice to ask Barry Trotz to trade for Mitch. It doesn't make sense for many teams to trade for Mitch Marner. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world, which you'll be watching or listening to this right now, and I appreciate you for that. Good night.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.